Welcome back to the best division in football with your boys, Awthentik and The Beard. The best television show not on TV. We got a pretty slow slate today of games, man, with the Washington Commanders still sitting at the top of the division. The Philadelphia Eagles are going to be on a bye here. Got our New York Giants headed to Seattle to take on the Seahawks, where we have not had the greatest luck in the recent past here. Browns are going to be headed to Washington, D.C. to take on the Washington Commanders. Tonight, we got the Bucs taking on the Atlanta Falcons. Not quite I'll give them the Tampa Baker, but I don't know if they was the Buccaneers last Sunday. We're going to have to see what my man Bucky Irving does. I saw them numbers. They was looking kind of slight. And we got the Dallas Cowboys taking on Justin Fields and the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm definitely looking forward to that, man. One of the more potent offenses going up against quite possibly the best defense in the entire National Football League. So let's get right to it. Without further ado, let me bring in the best co-host in the country, the left side to the strong side duo one time. My brother from another mother who I saw today, shout out to my Dukes one time, was definitely talking some politics with me, Beard. Let me bring in the best co-host in the country one time so we can get it popping here, man. Beard, what's cracking, my dog?
Well, I listen. I know. Like you probably were trying to escape it. He was firing them off.
Yo, she said that. She's like, he's always trying to get out of here fast. I was like, nah, Miss Kelly, I don't see you, that often. Wrap me up. You know what I'm saying? Give me the goods right now. It was good to talk, with her and chop it up and whatnot, man. But how you doing, man?
I'm doing good, man. I don't know. Maybe I turned my headphones up nice and loud today, but this beat was hitting a little bit different today. Got me beating on my kneecaps over here.
Man, like I've been noticing on the playbacks that like the translation of how loud the beats are in my ear comes across on the internet just a little bit lighter. I was like, man, we turning it up today. We got to hear this. We got to slam a little bit.
I like it. Hey, before I get cracking, I see my guy Paulie in the chat, Waterboys Network. Make sure y'all go sub up to Paulie and my guy G from the shop. Two guys I really, really got nothing but love for here in DC. But I'm excited.
Wait, before you move on from Paulie, the innovator of the streets need a body.
Yeah.
They need a body.
I mean, Paulie's that guy, man. Shout out Paulie. I tell you, I was digging into these games. There's some interesting stats in all these matchups, and I love digging into these numbers, because like sometimes it's like I'm a third down, I'm a red zone guy, but like when you start getting into these little like hurry percentages and pressure rate percentages, and I'm just like looking at it, I'm like, man, some of these teams it might not look as easy as it might have looked on paper when the season started going into this week. So I'm excited, and listen, there's a lot of football left to be played. It's been a whirlwind here in DC this week.
You think you got a good gauge? This is what I want to ask you, and I saw this on the Mina Khan show today. They were talking about it. What's your gauge of all the teams in the NFL right now? Do you think that like 4 weeks has kind of let you know who the contenders are going to be, who the pretenders are, or do you think you need another quarter of the season to really get a good grasp of what's going on around the league?
It's so funny you say that, because like at this point I'm like, okay, so at what point do we start taking into consideration teams' numbers based upon the opponents they've already played? Right. And so I think that kind of correlates with what you're asking right now. As far as pretenders and contenders go, I think it's a little early. And it's interesting because we always throw out the percentage of making the playoffs at 0-2 or 3-1, right? Like,
oh yeah, because that one's a real thing.
Yeah, it is. But then I start
0-2, not the 3-1 thing, but the 0-2, 0-3, 0-3. You pretty much hit.
But how much of that changes now? Because this is what, year 3 of 17 games?
It's something like that. It feels like year 4, but it might be year 3. You might be right.
So I wonder how much of that percentage starts to change a little bit.
I mean, do the math there. You add one more game, imagine this, right? Imagine the sweater, the crew neck that you want to buy cost $16 for your existence, and then it went up to $17, but you still getting 20% off. It's not that big of a difference.
It's not that big
of a difference.
That's a great analogy. I'll tell you, Awthentik is on fire, because at first I was looking at this game and I was like, I started about my Washington game. I started thinking about Young Jeezy. And then I seen Awthentik's tweet to our guy, shout out John Lane, and he was like, this ain't no damn trap game. Just you're 3-1. Go out and win the game. And I started thinking, I'm like, That guy's right.
What are we talking about here?
That's why I do a show with
Washington
him.
win 3 games, and now they talking about it's a trap game. Like, y'all like the San Francisco 49ers. Go win the damn game, man. That's what it is.
So I totally think that, because for me, I'm usually a last 5 to 7 game data, like when I'm doing fantasy.
Yeah.
So for me, I think weeks, you really start getting an idea after this week, I think. So I say week 5 to 7 is when you really start to think about, are they pretenders or contenders?
Yeah.
So I'm more of a closer to halfway than I am quarter of the way guy.
I think we know who's who for the most part. I think the teams that are dealing with more losses are the teams that are kind of in limbo right now with identity. I think some of the teams that are playing tonight are actually in that same kind of a ballpark. I think Atlanta's kind of in that range. The Dallas Cowboys are absolutely in that range. We're going to talk about that when we get to the game, because a lot of people are kind of feeling like maybe the Dallas Cowboys are cooked at this moment in time, and they're not going to be a team that's going to be contending for the division. But I think especially in the NFC East, the best division in football, it's not quite clear yet, right? Mm-hmm. Like, we only have had, one division game?
Yeah.
Each, I think.
We played you guys. I think that's the only division game, and you guys played the Cowboys.
That's it. Yep. And then
so
we
you
played
guys
Cowboys.
Have played two division games.
We've played
already.
the most division games. We're in the biggest hole right now. Yeah. All the other teams in the division right now kind of have a lot more games to play within the division before we kind of find out who really is that front runner. But that's not to take away anything from what Washington has done thus far, because, I mean, it's been a very impressive 4-game start for y'all. Quarterback, especially. And, being that your defense has been you're kind of dragging them along, right? It's like you got the OG old dog. He's kind of, losing it a little bit. And you got the young pup. He's all sparky running around the neighborhood. We're dragging that old dog on that leash, and that's y'all defense right now. Because
I'm definitely starting to hear the you guys haven't played anybody yet. You're being 3-1 and on top of the division. Yep. And normally I would because I'm on board with that to a certain extent. I mean, because I would be hypocritical if I didn't look at that the same way as I looked at, like, in previous seasons here of Awthentik and the Beard talking about the Dallas Cowboys, right?
Yeah.
Because I've been like that against the Cowboys. I think for me, it's not necessarily just about the record. I think it's just about how we've been winning games. That's kind of changed that perspective for me. Yeah, we haven't played anybody. I think our opponents so far that we've played, winning their record is like 3-9 or something like that. So, like, I understand that, but I think for me, I'm looking at it from a different perspective, because I didn't expect us to be a playoff team at all,
Right.
And so, like, to see us winning the way that we are, it's completely different offensive football than we've seen in the last 5+ years. So
yeah,
that's
it's a
big
4-quarter.
difference.
They always say you got to play 4 quarters of football, and for y'all right now, y'all are up in the first quarter, which is I think that's a really good thing.
Yeah. So, like, but we got some good games to talk about today. Big shout out to everybody in the chat. We see you guys rocking and rolling already. It's gonna be a fun one today. I got a good feeling, because I got some takes that might rub some of our viewership the wrong way, but we're gonna have to wait and see.
That sounds like that's gonna be about the Giants game, but let's get started off with the Cowboys first here. Cowboys are gonna be headed to Pittsburgh to take on Mike Tomlin and those Pittsburgh Steelers. All right, man, this Pittsburgh Steelers team, it seems like this happens every year. They're just surprisingly out in front, winning games, lack of, depth and high caliber personnel on their rosters and whatnot, but they're still winning games. They're sitting at 3-1 right now, welcoming the Dallas Cowboys at 2-2. This is the Sunday night game. I'm extremely excited about this one, having an NFC East game on Sunday night. Steelers were favored by 1 last I saw. Last meeting, the Steelers beat the Cowboys 24-19. That was back in 2020, so definitely a different team. And I don't believe Dak Prescott was the quarterback of that team either, because that's the last time the Giants beat the Cowboys as well, and I believe it was Andy Dalton. Last week, the Cowboys beat my New York Giants 20-15. The Steelers lost to the Colts in a game that they really had that was right there for them. Couple of penalties, errant snap from their center that went over Justin Fields' head kind of diminished their chances of winning that game late. It was their first loss of the season. And as far as injuries go, both of these teams are kind of coming into this game with some key injuries here, especially the Dallas Cowboys. No Brandon Cooks, no DeMarcus Lawrence. Micah Parsons has that high ankle sprain. He's questionable in this one. I would be extremely surprised to see him play in this one. Deron Bland is eligible to return after surgery. Don't know if they're going to rush him back or not. On the Steelers side of the ball, you got 2 running backs, I guess we can say, that are the main injuries for them, which is Cordell Patterson and Jaylen Warren coming into this game. Both questionable, leaning towards them not playing. But the Steelers team has not really been built on an identity thus far on the offensive side of the ball. Everything is defense for them, if you ask me. And Justin Fields playing clean. non-turnover worthy type of football right now. The Steelers defense in their 3 wins, no team has scored over 10 points in their 3 wins. The Colts put up 20 on them last week in that W, and they were dealing with, 2 quarterbacks in the situation with Anthony Richardson getting hurt in that game. I think it was in the third quarter. Right now, the Steelers are allowing just 13.3 points per game. That's second in the NFL. They're allowing 261 total yards. That's fourth in the NFL. Just 1.3 touchdowns per game, which is number 1 in the NFL right now. And red zone, they've been really good as well. They got the 4th best red zone defense in the league. They're stopping the run really good, only allowing 3.7 yards per carry. That's second in the NFL. 86.8 rushing yards per game. He's third in the NFL right now. I really think that this Pittsburgh team is they're cornered with just one way to win, and that's your defense plays good. Don't turn over the ball on offense. We talked about Justin Fields, entering last week during the parlay. I was extremely high on him as a sleeper and whatnot. And I heard Chris Canty on ESPN, and I think ESPN is getting to the point now where they're ready to lay off almost everybody in that company because some of the takes that are coming out of ESPN have just been absolutely ridiculous, and a lot of them have been coming from Chris Canty, a guy who I know knows ball, has had some better takes in his past, but the last 3 takes that I've heard from Chris Canty have been definitely interesting. One of them was that Joe Burrow lost them the game against the Commanders. I thought that was a little bit outlandish.
Crazy.
And this morning he says the Cowboys might as well begin to tank. He said the Giants aren't going to win the NFC East, and we damn for sure know that the Cowboys ain't going to win it, so they might as well start to tank. And I thought that was a pretty foolish comment considering that I don't look at Dak Prescott in the same light as I look at Josh Allen, but it's damn close to me, right? It's like Josh Allen brings you that running threat, that capability to really throw the ball deep down the field. But I think that when you have either of those quarterbacks on your team, you have a shot. That's how I look at it. And you got to pair Dak Prescott with CeeDee Lamb. And I think when you do that, it's almost equivalent to what we got over there in Buffalo with just Josh Allen, who's not working with, a perennial number 1 type of wide receiver over there. Now, Dak Prescott, he's coming off his 6th career game with a completion percentage of at least 80 just last week against the New York Giants. It was a quiet game, but it was a really good game and a passer rating of over 120. Prescott is 4th in the NFL right now in passing yards per game at 268. And primetime Dak Prescott has been really good so far. He's 26-11 in primetime games, which doesn't sound that crazy when you first say it, but he's one of 4 quarterbacks to have over a 700 rating or better with a minimum of 25 starts. That goes all the way back to 1970. So Dak is one of those under the bright lights. He's been one of those guys. CeeDee Lamb ain't really quite got it clicking this year, but, he's coming off a pretty big game against the New York Giants. It was 7 receptions for 98 yards, had the beautiful touchdown. It was on Deonte Banks, a 55-yard touchdown on a great rope throw from Dak Prescott. Still doesn't have a 100-yard game yet. So I think that, this could be that game going up against a defense that is known for pinning their ears back, getting after the quarterback. Watt obviously leads that defense. He's the guy that you got to watch out for. But I think it's important that the Cowboys get a second guy involved. And I think slowly but surely we've been kind of seeing that. We know no Brandon Cooks in this game, but Jake Ferguson coming back off the injury that when it happened looked like a season-ending injury.
Yeah.
He's been pretty decent, 23 targets, 16 receptions for 159 yards. And I think the other guy that's been surprising is Jalen Tolbert, who has 19 targets on the year, 13 receptions, 160 yards. So for me, it's either got to be Jake Ferguson, Jalen Tolbert, or maybe you get a little bit more out of the running back. Rico Dowdle has been taking that lead running back role away from Zeke Elliott in the last week, and he has been adding to the pass attack as well. He's got 9 receptions for 74 yards on the year, 34 attempts on the ground for 134 yards, 3.9 yards per carry, which is the yards per carry clip that I like my running back to be at bare minimum. It looks like a good game when you look at what Rico Dowdle's numbers look like. 34 for 134. Be like, yo, that's Umar Ferguson under the lights back on
Derrick
Friday.
Henry first half.
Yeah, that's one of those. So I think you got to find a way to get somebody involved, a second guy. And, before I kick it over to you, Justin Fields was a guy that I was asking for the New York Giants to go out there and trade for when he still had 3 to 4 years left on his contract with the 5th-year option. I thought he would have been a good project to bring in, a good marriage that would have been quarterback-head coach relationship with Brian Dable. And he's been playing some good ball, man. His completion percentage on the year is 70 right now, 0.6, just 830 yards through the air, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception with a passer rating of 98. But he's coming off his best statistical game. And not only his best statistical game, it's the best statistical game of any Steelers quarterback in the past 6 years. So We know it hasn't been a lot of great quarterbacking over there with Mitchell Trubisky, Kenny Pickett, Mason Rudolph, and those guys. But in 6 years, you haven't seen a guy put up a game like what we saw from Justin Fields last week, which was 312 through the air, 55 on the ground. That's 367 total yards of offense. He had the 2 rushing touchdowns I asked for and the 1 passing touchdown. It's the most yardage by a Steelers since 2018, and that was Big Ben Roethlisberger. So I think that this game is going to be a lot closer than most people think. If a team does blow a team out in this one, I'm going to go with the Cowboys. I think they have the high potent offense to be able to do that. Steelers relying on the run. Najee Harris not quite running the rock like we're used to seeing. This is lowest yards per carry at 3.4. So we'll see how that goes. But what are your thoughts on this matchup?
Listen, when I was going through the numbers, I was like, I'm going to have to put a lot of extra defensive numbers in here because I'm sure, like you said, when you think about the Steelers team, you think about defense. So I'm like, Awthentik's going to come with some defensive nuggets. Yep. So as you're talking, I'm like crossing them out. So I just know, like, Facts. I'm like, I had to bring a lot because this defense is, it's an interesting defense because when you think about Pittsburgh Steelers defense, right, recently, you think J.J. Watt, right? So, like, but they're doing it pretty much across the board defensively. So, they're tied for 6th in fewest yards per play allowed. They're only allowing 4.9 yards per play this year. They're tied for 9th in takeaways with 5. They're 3rd in the fewest first downs allowed. They've only allowed 60 first downs throughout this entire season so far. 3rd fewest in the NFL. You talked about some of the scoring and the touchdowns. They're only averaging an allowance of 1 passing touchdown per game, and they've only allowed 1 rushing touchdown all year. Just 1. So that's just some of the things. And they're giving up the 8th fewest passing yards. They're only allowing 174.5 yards a game in the air. Dallas is 4th. You'd mentioned Dak's yards per game. Obviously, the team overall comes down a little bit because I think they take away, for the sacks. So they're 4th in passing yards per game. They're averaging 255.5. So that's an interesting matchup right there. 4th most passing yards versus 8th fewest passing yards allowed. They have the 11th best third down defensive percentage at 31.9%. So that's another thing. And the scoring percentage, this is a good one right here. They have the 4th best defensive scoring percentage in the NFL. Opponents are only scoring on 26.2% of their drives against the Pittsburgh Steelers. So that's a quarter, basically, of your drives, you're scoring points. So it's going to be interesting to see how Dallas combats that because Dallas scores a lot on their drives. They are 6th best scoring percentage drive offensively. They're scoring on 45.5% of their drives. So
that's 6th best in the NFL right now. That number is very surprising for me because Dallas didn't really put up too many points against the Giants. They've had a couple of games here and there that were just very, like, offense feels a little bit lackluster, but did open up the year against the Browns in a major way. And
then having Aubrey as your kicker helps, obviously, on scoring, So, but Pittsburgh's offense.
That's what makes that a little bit skewed. Now I see what you're saying. Yeah, it's not touchdown percentage like how red zone is. It's field goals included. Okay, got you.
So Pittsburgh's offense, though, they're not scoring a lot of points. They're 11th fewest in the NFL. They're averaging 18.8 points per game. But Dallas does allow the 6th most points per game. They're giving up 26 points per game defensively.
Yeah,
we're not used to seeing that.
That's where the statistics be a little skewed from that Saints game.
The New Orleans Saints game, right?
I mean, put up almost 50.
At what point is that game going to change the percentages and the numbers
probably
for both
halfway
of those
through
teams?
The year? Yeah, probably halfway through the year, I'd imagine. Maybe more than that because they came out and put up over 90 points in 2 weeks, and you see the Saints have, they've came back down to earth. I didn't expect that kind of output with relying on the big play, but that is a good stat.
Yeah, and then Pittsburgh's run game, Najee just doesn't seem to be clicking, and it feels like it's been like that for a little while. I have been talking about Jalen Warren surpassing Najee Harris, which is what it feels like for the last 2 to 3 years, but he's been banged up. But Justin Fields' ability to move the ball with his legs has been a huge help for their overall running yards per game, which they're averaging 128.5, which is 10th most in the NFL. And we know about Dallas's run defense. They got a little help from last week from the 1.1 yards per carry New York Giants.
I see someone in the chat saying that was because Devin Singletary's groin, but I ain't going for that.
Yeah.
I'm not going for that right now.
He's not Saquon Barkley. Shout out to
He's
Sebastian for
definitely
the
not.
shorts.
Yeah.
Dallas is still giving up 6th most yards per game, 145.8 yards per game on the ground. So that's something that you're going to have to keep your eye out on. Now, defensively, you talked about the injuries for the Dallas Cowboys. They're going to have to find a way to get some action from some other people, with the possibility of Parsons not being out, and we already know Lawrence is going to be out for a while probably.
Yeah.
Because they're 4th highest in pressure percentage in the NFL at 30.5%. So for me, it's just going to have to come down to a couple of things. Can Dallas's defense play the way they should play against an offense like this, number one? And can Dallas's offense find a way to score points against this Pittsburgh Steelers defense? Because there's just, to me, there's a lot of holes in this Dallas offense, right? Like, and I'm glad you mentioned Jake Ferguson, because I didn't really take him into consideration in this game, but he has been fantastic when he's healthy. He's been a real big security blanket for Dak Prescott. I mean, we know Dak is good. We know CeeDee Lamb is great. Can Jake Ferguson, take that next level, right? We need him to be next level. Can he jump up into that tier of tight ends? Because no Brandon Cooks. I love Tolbert. I think you're going to get Tolbert and Turpin are like, if you can combine them into one wide receiver, basically, because that's the type of production
they can't find a way to
get.
Kevontae Turpin involved in the offense, though. And I just think it's his lack of route running. He's a fast guy when he gets the ball in his hands, but it seems they can't do that down the field. Everything they've tried with him, not only this year but last season, just seems to be a lot of like jet sweeps, quick hitters, stuff like that. And when teams see him come, onto the field, they're ready for that package. They know what's up, so they're ready for those quick, short hitting passes and whatnot. And it's been pretty much ineffective this year.
Yeah, and until they can find a way to get more than 75.3 yards per game on the ground, I think this Dallas offense is just, it's not built to win a tough game like this unless you can find a way to run the ball better than 75 yards a game. That to me is just like, you can win without running the ball, and probably, let's say, against 60% of the teams in the NFL.
Yeah.
There's going to be 40% of the teams in the NFL where you are going to have to find a way to run the ball to win. And
I'll
I think
say
that
this,
this is
the
one
way
of these
that the
games.
Cowboys can combat that, and it was one of my keys to victory for them, explosive plays, man.
Yeah.
That's all you need. We've seen teams like the Bucs do it. There have been a bunch of teams this year that the Saints did it, where the running game is not all that, but they get a couple of big plays, and you look up and the scoreboard is 21-3. You saw the Bucs do it to the Philadelphia Eagles without a running attack. They did it last week in their victory as well. So I think that you can do it, but you need explosive plays. You got to get those big hitting plays to CeeDee Lamb, and that's really I can't say their only big play target, because Tolbert has been one of those guys. He had the big play 2 weeks ago where he had the touchdown on the left side of the field as well too. So I think that's how you can combat it. Teams know that they're not going to be effective running the ball. They don't have the personnel to do it. I don't think they got the dogs up front to do it either. I mean, the rookie left tackle has been, I won't use the word struggling, but he's getting his feet wet and trying to get accustomed to the NFL with Tyler Guyton coming in this year and whatnot. And Cooper Beebe, I think, has been doing a pretty good job, but they're having to use a lot of double teams in the interior portion of that offensive line. So I just think you need big plays, and they got some against the Giants enough to be able to win that game. Capitalize on your drives when you get in the red zone. Make sure you score. I think those are important factors for them, knowing that they're coming into this game without a running attack. And then you can't forget that Dallas had a short week the week before. Now they're on 9 days rest.
That's a good point.
That they should have been able to adjust their game plan a little bit, even though they don't have Brandon Cooks in this matchup, but trying to figure out how to get their guys the ball on the perimeter as well.
I wanted to pick Dallas in this game. I really did. But in Pittsburgh, under the lights, that defense, and you almost swayed me with those Dak prime time numbers,
Yeah.
But I'm going to go Pittsburgh. I think Pittsburgh toughs this game out. I think this is a real tough game. I think that Pittsburgh is tougher than Dallas, and for that reason, they win this game. I'm going to take Pittsburgh Steelers 20, Dallas Cowboys 17.
20-17. I like it. I'm going to go with Dallas in this one. I just don't think Pittsburgh is going to have enough firepower to be able to keep up with the Dallas Cowboys offense. You got to look at how they've won their games. They've only allowed teams to score 10 points. Are the Cowboys going to come out here and score 10? I can't see that. So I think the Dallas Cowboys actually get back on track in this game. And I think this is going to be a 2-score win for the Dallas Cowboys. I'm going to go 27-17 Dallas Cowboys. But it would not hurt me if the Pittsburgh Steelers win this game because I am a big Justin Fields fan. But I think the way that you beat them is put Justin Fields in tough situations and make it where he has long down and distance down on the scoreboard. And I think that gives the Cowboys a good shot. But if the Cowboys go out here and they lose this game, it's going to be time to hit that panic button pretty damn soon.
Yeah.
Tough schedule
totally
ahead
agree.
of them, too.
Very, 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 very tough. Not fun.
All right, let's move into this next one. We got about a good half an hour, maybe a little bit more than that before Thursday night football starts. And let's go ahead and talk about these New York Giants traveling to Seattle to take on the Seahawks.
Giants are on the board with 11:16 to go here in the third.
All right, so we uploaded the breakdown I did for this game that had a few passing nuggets and whatnot about Daniel Jones' deep ball that we had done on Bleacher Report just on Wednesday and whatnot. It was a really good stream, so I wanted to share that with y'all here. But the New York Giants are definitely in a tough spot here in a must-win situation if they want to salvage this season here. They're sitting at 1-3 right now. The Seahawks are 3-1. Kickoff is on Sunday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The Seahawks favored by 6 in this one. The Beard was talking about this earlier. Every game that we're going to be covering today, the over-under is 43.5, which is very surprising here. Last week, we know the Giants lost to the Cowboys 20-15. Seahawks lost to the Lions 42-29 in a game that was a little bit closer than that score kind of indicates. Last meeting between these two teams was last season, and it's the infamous game where a lot of people on Twitter were saying, I'm done with Daniel Jones now after throwing a pick six in the red zone and having that one taken back to the house by Devin Witherspoon. He was sacked 10 times in that game, and the Seahawks won 24-3. Now, this is the third straight season the Giants and the Seahawks have played each other. This goes all the way back to that Colt McCoy matchup, which is the last time that the New York Giants beat the Seahawks in 2020. And the Seahawks have now won 6 of the past 7 matchups. The Seattle Seahawks lead the series right now with a record of 11-10. So I think that kind of gives us a little bit of a leadway to, get this record in this series matchup back to, even kind of series here at 11-11, which is actually like my luckiest 2 numbers when they're back-to-back. A lot of people know about that 11-11 and what it does in the universe. And I'm hoping that could be the case here, even though I'm not feeling too confident about this game. The Seahawks have the 5th-ranked offense right now and the 8th-ranked defense. I don't know how the Giants are going to compete against this. Malik Neighbors is definitely in doubt here for this matchup, being that he is in concussion protocol. He did not practice today. Devin Singletary also dealing with the groin injury that we heard in the chat as well. He did not practice today as well. He's going to be questionable. And the one thing that I think gives me a little bit of hope in this game is that the Giants offense in particular has been better on the road. Daniel Jones has completed 70% of his passes in the last 2 games. He has 2 touchdowns in both of his last road games. Devin Singletary has a touchdown in 5 of his last 6 road games dating back to his time with the Houston Texans. And the Giants' red zone percentage nearly doubles when we're on the road. They were sitting somewhere around 43% at home, which is terrible. For the people with the season tickets, man, not being able to see their team score touchdowns, that's definitely a letdown and very disheartening. Now, this past week on Monday Night Football, the Seattle Seahawks offense, they definitely were not the problem. They were definitely moving the ball. Both teams moving the ball. This was a competition between 2 high-potent offenses, and Geno Smith had 38 first downs. Talked about it in that video. It's the most ever by a losing team. He was 38 of 56. The 56 attempts is the most attempts by any quarterback in Seattle's complete history of the franchise record there. 516 total yards, 75% in the red zone, 30-plus points. Kenneth Walker averaging 6.7 yards per carry, only had 12 carries. He had 3 touchdowns in that game, and the Seahawks somehow still found a way to lose that game. And I think the reason why they lost that game is because the Detroit Lions offensively had a perfect game plan and they played perfect. And literally, Jared Goff played perfect, 19-19. He had like 285 yards. Detroit was 5 of 5 in the red zone. I don't know if the New York Giants can be perfect in a shootout. I think you got to make this game a little bit ugly. And the Seahawks are coming into this game pretty banged up defensively. Their front 7 has a ton of injuries already. Boye Mafe in particular. Uchenna Nwosu as well, who absolute dog. Byron Murphy, Leonard Williams, all these guys are banged up. Julian Love is questionable as well. They did say that inside linebacker Jerome Baker is supposed to suit up and play in this game. Shout out to DJ Jerome Baker one time, too, from the city. Now, I do think that if we have a shot, it's going to be defensively. It's going to be very difficult to stop Geno Smith. He has been playing some under the radar, low key, top 5, top 10 type of football. He's number 1 in the NFL right now in passing yards. He has 1,182 yards through 4 games. Back-to-back 300-yard performances. He had 287 yards the week before the back-to-back performances. 10th in QBR right now, but he has just 4 passing touchdowns and 4 interceptions, and that 1-to-1 ratio is not looking all that good. I think that's where the New York Giants can maybe find a way to have an opening to win this game. I think that Shane Bowen needs to go back to what we did in Cleveland. Look at how we pressured the quarterback in Deshaun Watson. We sent the blitz on 57% of the snaps. Get back to trying to make Geno Smith uncomfortable. And although in these last couple of games, he's had some pressure on him, and he's found ways to be able to, like, maneuver in that pocket and make some miraculous plays. When you look at the Detroit Lions and Seahawks game from Monday night, Jared Goff was pretty much upright the whole entire time. He did get sacked 3 times in the game. Geno Smith was running for his damn life the whole game, and he was only sacked 3 times. They did it in a very different way. And I think that Geno Smith is, like, right at that threshold of I won't say a dual threat quarterback, but a guy who's mobile enough, but also can do all those things from the pocket. And he's been doing that a lot with DK Metcalf. Tyler Lockett has been having some pretty good games as well, but DK Metcalf has 3 consecutive games with 100 yards right now, 104 in 2 games. I think DK Metcalf, a lot of people used to say this about Terry McLaurin, like being one of the most underrated. I think DK Metcalf might be the most underrated wide receiver in the league. I don't know, like wide receiver 1 at least. But he's coming off back-to-back games of 104 yards. He had 10 receptions 3 weeks ago versus the New England Patriots for 129 yards. He's got 366 yards on the season. That's 3rd in the NFL right now. And his targets are low. He's 8th in targets at 36, 24 receptions. He's got that 1 touchdown from a week ago that was 71 yards. This game's going to be tough for the Giants to win, man, but I think that the formula here is kind of similar to the Dallas Cowboys going up against the Pittsburgh Steelers, except not only do you need the explosive plays on offense, you're going to need your defense to come out here and pretty much play their best ball of the season.
Yeah.
You got to see a game like the Cleveland Browns. And I talked about this in the video we released this morning about Brian Dable and possibly Joe Shane and the rest of the guys on his staff being a little bit scared to expose Daniel Jones. Like, I understand he's struggling throwing the deep ball, and he's 2 for 15 now on the season on throws over 20 yards. He had an interview in the locker room the other day where he said the deep ball is not a problem. And I just think that, like, my homie Ray said it best. He's trolling us. Like, what do you mean the deep ball is not a problem? You're 2 of 15 right now. You're 27 of 32 in your last game on throws under 15 yards, and then you're 1 for 7 down the field. The one you connected on was just a poor throw in general. Wide open Malik Neighbors, and you barely hit him with the pass. I think you got to get pressure on Geno. You know, right now that Seahawks offense, 25.5 points per game, 387 yards per game. Those are both top 10 numbers, 3 touchdowns per game. That's top 10 numbers as well. They're running the ball fairly effective. They're 11th in the league in yards per carry. You got to find a way to slow down this offense first. Don't allow them to get out to an early lead. Can we establish a real run this week?
That would be helpful. That would be, especially considering that you probably are going to be without Neighbors. Oh, you're going to need some running game.
Yeah, and I mean, they're banged up on that interior portion of their defensive line, and even when they're healthy, they're not, some kind of juggernaut of a defense in general, but 1.1 yards per carry last week, I mean, only God and Brian Dable know what's up with that. That's going to be my new saying, Beard. Like how?
Put it on a T-shirt.
Yo, Beard could be playing center. I could be playing quarterback. Chris Peace could be playing tailback, and I think we would average more than 1.1 yards per carry. I'm not understanding that right now. Right now, we're dead last in yards per carry in the NFL. We're 30th in rushing yards per game. Got to find a way, but, Seattle's defense they're a good middle-of-the-pack defense. I think where they're best at is stopping teams from, getting chunk yards. 283 yards per game is 8th in the NFL, and they're allowing just 167.5 passing yards per game. So the defense is definitely capable. It's just what defense are we going to get? Because at the same time, I know the Giants fans, some Giants fans, the more optimistic ones are probably looking at this like, Jared Goff was 19-19 last week. Daniel Jones will be able to come out here and light this defense up.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And I think he'll have some openings in this one. I really do. I think Daniel Jones will be efficient, but that game from last year got to be lingering in the back of his mind where the Seattle Seahawks were literally just teeing off on this dude. Like, they were just like, they're on the bench like, yo, you got one, right? You got a sack, right? Like, yeah, dog, yeah. He's like, yeah, well, you got to get one. If you don't get one today, dog, you ain't shit. Like, they were celebrating like that. So we need a performance. This is a different offensive line, so I don't expect him to get sacked nowhere near that amount of times. Keep Daniel Jones upright. I think the Giants have a chance, but I'll see what the beard got to say, and maybe it'll lean me in towards either, farther away from my team, or maybe it'll lean me in towards possibly picking them for a dub here.
No, it's gonna be ugly, all right. It's definitely gonna be ugly. So it's so crazy. So for y'all that don't know, a lot of times we don't really go like, before we go live, like kind of like, what we're going to talk about, right?
Never.
And I got some numbers for Seattle, which is kind of interesting for an overall season numbers, especially considering, how upright golf was last week. But I mean, just a couple of, passing numbers here, okay? Seattle averages the most passing yards per game in the National Football League at 280.8. The New York Giants are actually not too bad. Middle of the pack. Yards. Mm-hmm. Middle of the pack, number 193. Now, the Giants are tied for 5th for the most passing touchdowns allowed this year, giving up 6 passing touchdowns so far this year. So, Gino might match his total of the season just in this game. We'll have to wait and see. Now, we talked a little bit about this last show about, the Drew Lock situation, because New York Giants are tied for the 3rd fewest points per game at 15. You're going to have to find a way to score more than 15 points in this game. That's just a fact. Now, what's interesting is both of these teams kind of are giving up the same amount of points per game. Seattle allows 21.3 points per game. The Giants allow 21 points per game. Okay, so it's going to be interesting to see who's going to be on the right side as far as these points scored are. Now, we're going to go ahead and assume there's no Malik Neighbors in this game. I know the saying, assuming does nothing but make an ass out of you and me, but we're going to assume, okay, that Malik Neighbors doesn't play. So the New York Giants, they average 296.75 yards per game.
296.
Yeah, 0.75.
Yeah, 90 of those are Malik Neighbors.
96.5 of those are Malik Neighbors. So without Malik Neighbors, the New York Giants, as a total team, whole, passing and rushing, are only averaging 200 yards per game.
Tough way to look at it, because those numbers would go somewhere. They might be negative numbers.
They might. I mean, listen, they might. So they're going to have to figure a way to score. Now, this is the thing. Now we're getting to the point that I started this whole conversation with. I'm going to go ahead and give you guys some Seattle numbers that might also be in Daniel Jones' head going into this game, okay? Seattle Seahawks have the 3rd highest hurry percentage in the NFL, 13.4%. Okay? Seattle has the 4th most quarterback knockdowns at 18. Seattle also is tied for 2nd with the highest quarterback knockdown percentage at 15%. They have the 4th most sacks in the NFL, 14. They have the 2nd most pressures in the NFL, 51. They have the highest pressure percentage at 35.9%. That means they are getting pressure on the quarterback 35.9% of the times there is a drop back. So that's some pretty good numbers right there, going at the quarterback. So, without a run game, 1.1, we should just put 1.1 on T-shirts. And then put God and Dable right underneath.
They did, the starter had the line that just said 1924. No Giants logos, no nothing. Maybe we should copy that and just go with that 1.1.
1.1. So listen, you're going to have to do better than 1.1. Daniel Jones is going to have to find another guy. Listen, Wan'Dale Robinson's been a guy, but I think it's 20 out of his 26 catches this year or targets are under 7 yards or 7 yards or less. So, I mean, they're going to have to figure something out. I think this is a big game for Daniel Jones mentally, which is why I like that you mentioned that about last season, and then I doubled down on it with this year's, statistics as far as their ability to get to the quarterback. So they're going to have to find something. Something's going to have to click. I personally don't think that anything's going to click for the New York Giants in this game. I think they're in for a long day, unfortunately, especially being on the road. It's not good. Not a good situation for the New York Giants. I don't know if I persuaded you one way or another. Maybe my score prediction will persuade you one way or another.
Yeah, let's see it.
I'm going to go Seattle Seahawks 31, New York Giants 12.
God damn. Damn. 31-12 though. Yikes. That's tough. Okay. I did see the how NFL the YouTube page does the breakdowns every week and whatnot. And all 8 of the people that pick on that panel pick the Seattle Seahawks. And sometimes that means, we gonna win the game, but I'm not feeling like that right now. I think the Seattle Seahawks are just a better team. Came into last week at 3-0, got their first loss to a team that was in the championship last week and trying to get right back there. I mean, the Detroit Lions are definitely no slouch. I got to go with the Seahawks, man. And I think that this game, and I kind of want to know your opinion on this too. If the Giants don't come out here and score over 15 points per game, I think that the coaching staff and the front office got to really look at the quarterback situation and just see what Drew Lock can bring to the table.
I mean, we talked about it on Tuesday. What do you have to lose?
Yeah. And it's not really the biggest indictment on Daniel Jones, but it's just sometimes something like that can make the offense kind of move a little bit different and maybe
Panthers.
Build some kind of a spark. Yeah, you saw it with Andy Dalton. That's a good point.
I mean, that offense looked horrible. And I think this is an interesting little tidbit here since we're talking about this game. Geno Smith. I mean, he was written off.
Yeah.
For a while. It wasn't like he was written off and then came out and played.
Like 7 years, man.
Yeah. So it's like, I mean, look at that guy didn't get his 7 years. He had to wait 3-4 years to get his 7 years.
And then didn't get the proper bag either. The
Yeah.
$28 million. I mean, Brian Burns and him are making the same amount of money.
So, I mean, look at Bryce Young. I still think that Bryce Young is talented. He was the number 1 pick in the NFL for a reason. There's a difference between his situation and a Jamarcus Russell situation, right?
Yeah.
But that offense looked terrible, and everybody
Russell was on lean, by the way.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't like when people use him as the bust, example because, I mean, the dude was drugged out.
Yeah, there's a lot of those quarterbacks who were drugged out. I mean, Ryan Leaf ended up being drugged out. But,
Kerry Collins with the Giants was like that when he was in Carolina. He was pretty much an alcoholic.
Yeah, so my thing here is, like, when you were looking at that Carolina offense, you're like, they put Bryce Young in a horrible situation. And I was sitting here like, man, this is – in the preseason, I'm like, Deontay Johnson's going to be a guy. Bryce Young that's going to be a nice little tandem, right? And it looked like absolute shit.
Still had Adam Thielen over there too.
Yeah.
Like their wide receiver core is pretty good. Like,
and then they draft Leggett, and then they bench Bryce Young. I mean, that offense looked like they couldn't score 10 points in a game. And Dalton comes in and they're putting up 20+ points a game.
But I'll tell you what's very different about that, right? Their offense looked like straight garbage. Mm-hmm. Our offense doesn't look like garbage. I'll try to make a quick comparison. It's like a boxer that's not trying to get hit. Right? Yeah. You're trying to jab. You don't want to get hit. But at the end of the day, if you're a slugger and you could take a couple of punches, but you can deliver some punches, that's going to be better off for you in the long run in a fight rather than trying to run, hide, jab, play defense, do all that stuff. And then finally, when you get caught with a shot, you don't even know how to react. The Giants' offense is a dink and dunk offense. It is the definition of a dink and dunk offense right now. And that shit looks good on the stat box, but then when you actually look at the scores and you look at the tempo of these games, if our defense wasn't playing average ball, and we'll say, 3 out of the 4 games, I'll remove, the one game at the beginning of the year, these games wouldn't even be close. Like the Dallas Cowboys ain't supposed to go out there and be fooling around with the New York Giants, scoring 15 points and it be a close game. So I think that Drew Lock, you bring him in, you have to at least consider bringing him in now. And I talked about this in that video, man, like, the Giants need to start assessing the future of the quarterback position right now. Stop being reactionary. Stop waiting for things to go completely left and go the way that you did not think they were going to go, like the Daniel Jones contract, like the 2023 season, and then trying to react after the fact. Be pro-reactionary. Like, don't wait for it to happen. Envision it and have foresight and see it coming down the line here and make a decision on it. Because if we end the season and we were a 4 or 6 win team, bro, and Daniel Jones played every game and he puts up, Sal was talking about this on Twitter, let's say he puts up like a good 3,900, 4,000 yards, and these jokers consider bringing him back after the Giants only won 4 to 6 games, that's going to be a whole indictment on New York Giants football, and I don't know how much longer I could sit around for that kind of shit.
Yeah. So how many points? Do they score 15 points in this game?
I think they're going to get just over it. Gregory's got a good score. I'm going to go a little bit higher on the Seattle side. I'm going to go 27-17 Seahawks.
Tough day Tough day for the Giants.
Definitely a tough day, man. It's gonna be a tough one, but I just hope that they can find a way to maybe we see the Giants' best football of the year. I'm not gonna rule it out.
Never know.
But I'm also not gonna think too optimistic either. Let's get off into this game, probably the most, exciting game of the week as far as Commanders fans are concerned, I can imagine. But sitting at the top of the division, the Washington Commanders 3-1 are going to welcome the Cleveland Browns. All right, Cleveland's coming into this one in complete struggle mode, sitting at 1-3. I'm surprised they have one victory on the season. Their lone victory was against the Jacksonville Jaguars, who really are not a good team at this current moment in time. Kickoff is Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Commanders favored by 3.5 in this one. Over-unders 43.5. Last meeting, the Browns beat the Commanders. It was just last year or two in January, but I believe it was 2 seasons ago.
Thank God.
Thank God. They beat them 24-10. That one was in Washington as well. Last week, the Commanders beat the Cardinals in a major way, put up so many points on the scoreboard, and the Browns ended up losing to the Raiders 20-16. The Browns have won the past 2 meetings, but I'd say the past really doesn't matter when we're talking about the Washington Commanders right now. This is a team that is headed in a new, different direction, and Washington is 3-1 right now for the first time since 2011. Commanders are looking for their first 4-1 start since 2008.
Listen, there's going to be a lot of those this year, man.
Dude, that makes me want to go back and look at some Giants stats, but I know 2022 we were definitely 4-1. Myles Garrett coming into this one a little bit questionable. That foot injury is still bothering him a little bit. And the Browns just have been, to me, one of the worst teams in football. And I know the record might not say that they're as bad of a team as the Jacksonville Jaguars, who are the only team left without a victory. But I think they might be a worse team. Right now, they're very undisciplined. They're averaging 8.5 penalties per game. That's 28th in the NFL. Just 5 penalties last week, though, against the Raiders. And I thought they played a little bit better of a game. I'll get into that. But let's talk about the Washington Commanders last week versus the Arizona Cardinals. I was about to say last year. 9 drives, 42 points. That was the most since 2016. 29 first downs, 450 yards, 233 through the air. Their third down percentage was 75%. Perfect on fourth down. Commanders are the best third down offense in football right now. 4-5 in the red zone. Just one play that lost any yards. Jaden Daniels was not sacked on the day. Commanders have scored on 68% of their drives. It's the highest rate in the last 25 years. Jaden Daniels was 26 of 30 for 233 yards, 2 total touchdowns, 1 little fugazi interception where the ball kind of went a little high on him one time. And I think that Jaden Daniels has been everything that the Commanders would have hoped for and everything that the Commanders needed. Now, Deshaun Watson is a bit of a different story here, and I don't think that he is all of the problems that are happening with the Cleveland Browns offense, but he's definitely been a part of it. I just think he doesn't match the play calling. I've been talking about this for the last couple of weeks with Kevin Stefanski and Ken Dorsey over there, that's not the perfect match, right? And we're talking GM to quarterback or GM to head coach to quarterback. It's not aligning right now in Cleveland. And we saw Joe Flacco last year come in and have a lot of success with this team and even drag them into the playoffs. But Deshaun Watson last week was pretty decent.
Yeah.
24-32 for 176 yards. He had 1 touchdown, 1 interception. And when you look at that box score, you go, oh, well, he had just one touchdown and 1 interception. But I was telling the Beard about this. The interception that he threw last week was probably one of the most impressive throws I've seen all year long. And it literally smacked Amari Cooper in the chest and just popped up in the air, and then it got intercepted. Now, they were 1 of 2 in the red zone. They're terrible on third down last week at 3 of 10. Just 151 passing yards per game, and that's 29th in the NFL. And that's the part that I don't necessarily put on Deshaun Watson right now. The way that they're utilizing their game plan, I feel like, and the philosophy of their offense has been a lot of short passing concepts. And we know that when Deshaun Watson had a lot of success with the Houston Texans, he was stretching the field, but he was doing that by extending plays. I don't think they have the dogs up front right now to be able to have him sit back in the pocket and try to buy time for this particular wide receiver core that they have in Cleveland right now. Now, Cleveland's offense right now is last in the NFL. They're averaging 3.9 yards per play, which that's not going to get it done. And the Browns have not scored over 20 points in any game. They're very fortunate to have a victory where they didn't do that. They've only rushed for over 100 yards in one game. And right now, averaging 94.8 rushing yards per game is 26th in the NFL. I saw Nick Chubb back at practice. I know that they desperately need him. I'm pretty sure he's not going to be there this week for this matchup against the Washington Commanders. But this is the other thing. it's not only that they're unable to run the ball, and when you look at rushing statistics, sometimes they can be a bit skewed because attempts per game is extremely important. And right now, this Cleveland Browns offense reminds me of Washington last year underneath Eric Bieniemy, where we were talking about a team that was like 60-40, 65-35 as far as pass-to-run ratio. And right now, they're only running the ball on 34% of their plays. And if you truly want to help out your quarterback,
got to run the ball.
You got to run the ball. These defenses are putting pressure on Deshaun Watson, and I'll use our game as the perfect example, is where we just blitzed the hell out of him. And he did not know what to do with that, trying to buy time, and it just wasn't working for him. So, I would expect the Cleveland Browns to come out and run the ball. More emphasis on running the ball in this game and have a better balance with your pass attack in conjunction with running the ball. I'm not saying go 50-50 or, 60-40 in favor of the run, but give me at least 40% run on this day against Washington, because Washington's going to run the ball. They've been very effective at running the ball already. Brian Robinson coming off 2 100-yard games in his last 3 performances. And Jaden Daniels right now, very low-key and sneaky, already has 218 rushing yards a quarter way through the season. And this is why they're calling this guy Baby Lamar Jackson. Someone on ESPN was talking about this, how he has about 80 to 90% of the running ability that Lamar Jackson has. But when it comes to pocket passing, he does it like a Joe Burrow.
Yeah, I saw that.
That, to me, sounds like a perfect quarterback. And right now, he's leading the NFL as far as quarterbacks go in rushing touchdowns with 4 of them. I think this game plan for both teams should be relatively obvious. For the Commanders, run the damn ball, obviously. Take care of the ball the way that Jane Daniels has been doing and let him do what he does. Continue to convert on 3rd down. This should be a alley-oop victory for the Washington Commanders if that's the case. But how you looking at this one?
So injuries, you talked about Chubb. I don't think he's going to play. Garrett, he'll probably play, but, and he'll find a way to cause some havoc at some point or another. But the offensive line is banged up for the Cleveland Browns. Washington, though, has 2 serious injuries that have come up on the report. So Eckler, it's funny because I see Kevin and PRF in the chat. Eckler is probably going to play. Brian Robinson hasn't practiced for 2 days now with a knee injury. So tomorrow's going to be a huge, tell to see if he's going to play to a certain extent, I guess. Obviously, a lot of these guys will been tested on the game day and then play. But we've seen, if we have Eckler and McNichols, it won't be Brian Robinson, but it'll be a good combination of guys. A little bit of a different game plan because you won't have that in between the tackles sort of running, obviously. And Noah Brown also did not practice today, too. So it'll be interesting to see. We're going to need one of these guys to step up against Zacchaeus, McCaffrey, that sort of situation. But there's some interesting things that you talked about. Obviously, you talked about the yards per play for the Cleveland Browns being at 3.9. Washington gives up the second most yards per play at 6.2. So, can Cleveland find a way to up the ante against a bad Washington defense? You talked about the 3rd down percentage for the Cleveland Browns. I mean, it is horrendous. 20.8% 3rd down conversion offensively, but Washington has the worst 3rd down defense, 54.8%. So it's just going to be a matchup here. You got the Browns offense who's ranked 31st against Washington's defense who's ranked 27th. Washington's offense who's 6th against Cleveland's defense who's 11th. So that's going to be, there's going to be a battle here to see who can outperform their original.
I don't think it'll matter much. You know how y'all doing. Y'all just boat racing teams.
Yeah, I know. But, the Cleveland Browns defense is probably, I don't know. Would you think that they're the best defense we've played so far? Tampa Bay and Cleveland,
I think they're similar to the Bucs. That's exactly what I was going to say. I think they're a very similar built defense to the Bucs too.
The one game
better in the cornerback department though.
Yeah, and then Cleveland allows the 14th most rushing yards per game at 123. Washington has the 3rd most per game on the ground at 169. You talked about Cleveland barely not even getting to 100 yards per game at 94.8. Washington's rush defense might be worse than our pass defense right now. They allow the 10th most rushing yards per game, giving up 136.5 on the ground. It's funny you talked about the game plan, right? And about how, Cleveland is kind of getting away from the run in that Eric Bieniemy sort of situation. I was listening to a beat reporter from Cleveland this afternoon, And he was saying the same thing, basically, like they should go out and attack this Washington run defense. They should run the ball.
Yeah.
But for some reason, he believes also that they're going to continue to try to pass the ball. They just feel like their pass attack is better right now than their run game without Nick Chubb, which I thought was super interesting because we've been talking about this sort of like a theme so far through the first 4 to 5 weeks here about coaches, outthinking themselves. When it's right there in front of your face, you should just run the ball against this Washington
But
defense.
that one is that. I like the take from homie you're talking about on the air there because, Jerome Ford, there's a reluctancy to rely on him as an every down running back. And I think that's why they tried to bring in Donta Foreman to kind of do some of those things. I feel like they had another guy. I feel like they had a third or fourth running back a year ago.
Ernest Johnson.
What happened to my dude?
I
He was
don't know.
running
I
tough.
forgot about that, and then you just reminded me. He just came right to me. Ernest Johnson.
He was a good running back. And when Nick Chubb was banged up a season ago or whatever, they were using those two running backs in pairing in a really good way. And this year it's like, especially against the Giants game, I was like, they didn't run the ball in the first half at all and had the 7-0 lead and still wouldn't run the ball. So it is interesting. They're kind of trying to rely on like more of a West Coast type of short passing game to supplement for the run, which I agree with you on that. It's like it is kind of right there for you. Like these defenses that you're going up against, the Giants in particular in Washington, are teams that don't stop the run that great. Why not just run it right at them?
Yeah. These are the questions that we ask, but somehow we never get the answers to, right? Just a couple more stats here before we get into the roadmap. Washington and Cleveland are two of only 4 teams left in the National Football League who have not recorded an interception. So it'll be interesting to see, hopefully, given Washington's ability to be clean so far through 4 games, I would imagine this is an opportunity here for Washington to maybe sneak away with their first interception against Deshaun Watson.
It was one of how many teams?
So these are 2 of the 4 teams left in the NFL that don't have an interception.
Both of these teams. And y'all hadn't thrown an interception until last week.
Yeah, until last week. So we're +1 in our turnover differential, I believe, and I think Cleveland is -2 turnover differential right now.
Got you.
So, we haven't forced a lot of turnovers. Most of them, I think all of them, obviously, have been fumbles so far. And then this is the big one for me. Washington is tied for 5th in fewest sacks so far. We've only gotten 8 sacks this season. And I think 4 of them, if I'm not mistaken, came last week. The Cleveland Browns have allowed the most sacks in the National Football League. Deshaun Watson has been sacked 19 times so far. So this is an opportunity for the Washington defense to kind of get off and get going and make some plays, especially against that banged up Cleveland front. So that's kind of like some of the numbers. I mean, Cleveland's third down defense is actually 7th best in the National Football League, 30.6%. The Washington you mentioned has the best third down defense. So this is a good test for them. I mean, offense, yeah. So this is a good test for them to see how they perform against a top 10 third down defense in the Cleveland Browns. But without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, I'll turn my hat around backwards. Awthentik, 2 hands on the seatbelt. Let's go ahead and get this roadmap out of the way here, ladies and gentlemen.
What the hell? Yeah, you're getting on the freeway.
What?
No, turn right. Go get out of the lane. No. Okay, get in position. Just get out the lane.
That joint just hits. I love this beat. All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is the officially, unofficially sponsored Roadmap to Victory by Waze. Get to where you're going, and this is how we get to where we're going. RTDB. You got to run the damn ball. I'm up in the ante. Even if Brian Robinson doesn't play, I don't care if it's Eckler, McNichols, Pennyworth, Dimes, $50 running the ball. You got to get at least 160 yards on the ground this week against the Cleveland Browns and that defense. We just talked about it. You got to get to Watson. I'm going to need at least 4 sacks from the Washington Commanders in this game. Talked about third down. We're up in the ante here. Third down offense has to be better than 60%. We're 60% or better offensively, and defensively, I'm going to expect a lot out of this defense. I want the Cleveland Browns to convert on third down 30% or less in this game. That is 23.5% better than what we have been doing on the season.
Okay.
And we're going to do this. We're going to keep Deshaun Watson under 200 passing yards. He's only averaging 151.5 passing yards per game as an offense for Cleveland because of all those sacks. But we have been allowing 220 passing yards per game. So I want to get right there in that medium range and keep Deshaun Watson under 200. And last but certainly not least, let's keep the ball. Keep the ball, keep moving. Win that time of possession. I think we've won the time of possession in every single game this year so far, if I'm not mistaken. So let's keep it going. That's the roadmap to victory. That being said, I do see a victory for the Washington Commanders this week. I'm going to take the Washington Commanders by a final score of 31-20. So they get to that 20-point mark for the first time this year.
I like it, man. I like the score. I like the roadmap. I'm going to go a little bit less for the Commanders and a little bit less for the Browns as well, too. I'm going to go 24 for the Commanders. Browns offense stinks. They stink, man. They stink, bro. They're terrible. 24-13 Commanders.
So we both have 11-point victories.
Good stuff. Yeah, it should be about that. It wouldn't surprise me if y'all just ran away with this one and scored a bunch more points, though. I ain't going to lie.
Yeah, but no trap game, right?
Yeah, ain't no trap game. Definitely not. Washington ain't been good for 400 years. All right, let's get off into this last matchup, the Thursday night matchup between the Bucs and the Atlanta Falcons. All right, real quick on this one, and then we'll get y'all up out of here so you can check this one out on Amazon Prime. Kickoff is at 8:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Tampa Bay coming into this game at 3-1. I think, when I was asking at the beginning of the show here, like, the identity of these teams, who's pretenders, who's contenders. Tampa Bay let it be known last week who they are going up against them Philadelphia Eagles. And Atlanta's sitting at 2-2. I think they're a little bit more in limbo here coming into this game, and they need this victory. Atlanta really needs this dub. The Falcons are favored by 2.5. The over-under is 43.5 in this one as well. And the Buccaneers lead this series. This is another one that's just a one-game split here. The Buccaneers lead it with a record of 31-30. Last meeting, the Bucs did beat the Falcons 29-25. That was in 2023 in December. That was in Atlanta. Last week, the Bucs took care of the Eagles 33-16. Falcons beat the Saints. Seemed like the Saints really should have won that game. Made a couple of mistakes towards the end of it. The Falcons end up coming away with the victory. The Buccaneers now are trying to go for their fourth straight NFC South title. And that was not during that Tom Brady run. It all started after that, which is very surprising. Tampa, Baker, and the Buccaneers. We're going to see if they'll be the Buccaneers tonight. I'm hoping. He should get more carries tonight. But they definitely been handling this division for the last 3 seasons. The Falcons' most recent division championship came in 2016, and that was when they went to the Super Bowl with Matt Ryan. And I saw a clip running around Twitter today of Matt Ryan playing the guitar in the locker room, and they kept saying, like, it was like the goons from the defense on one side where Matt Ryan's playing acoustic guitar and, like, had one of his homies, one of the white boy offensive linemen, like singing, like on some country vibes. And they kind of bringing like some rap ad-libs and whatnot. And just reminded me of that 2016 season, man. And Matt Ryan should have really got a Super Bowl, man. The way that they lost that game hurts me. And I'm always watching the Raw Room podcast. And one of their hosts was a cornerback on that team who they were picking on. He was getting roasted that entire game. And guests always seem to bring it up. So definitely a tough loss for them. But they're trying to get back in contention here with Kirk Cousins at quarterback. And Drake London, man. Drake London has been really good these last couple of weeks here. He leads the Falcons right now with 20 receptions and 200 yards, and he leads them with receiving touchdowns with 2 of them on the year. Mike Evans kind of got back on track. Bucky Irving was kind of doing his thing, had 10 for 49. What's my man? Rachaad White also had 10 for 49 last week as well. So they did get their running game, I guess, kind of going, considering how the Bucs have not been able to run the ball that great. Baker Mayfield, this is the most surprising stat of this game. And I told the Beard right before we went on air, I was like, this nugget makes no sense. Baker Mayfield leads the Bucs in rushing touchdowns.
Wait. How many does he have?
He's got 2, and that leads them in rushing touchdowns right now.
Bucky got his first one last week.
Yeah, he did. So you're hoping to see him get in the end zone. The Bucs defense last week, man, held the Eagles to just 227 yards. They are getting a bit, healthier now. entering this game tonight. Vita Vea, they're still dealing with a bunch of injuries up and down that defense. I know Antoine Winfield was dealing with some injuries as well. Their linebackers were dealing with some injuries. So you hope that they can get healthy and, really make a push, because I think healthy, the Bucs are a team that can get into the playoffs and do kind of what they did last year, surprise the Philadelphia Eagles in a blowout. I think it was 33-13 in that one. And then maybe go on to a conference game, divisional game, and maybe get some W's and surprise some folks. You never know. And I know the Beard is one of these guys too. We're always rooting for Baker Mayfield over here, man. I wish the Giants would have signed him, before they gave Daniel Jones that $160 million contract, because Baker Mayfield was out there for $4 million goddamn dollars. Could have saved a ton of money, but I'm leaning towards the Bucs in this one. I think they are the better team. I think that the Falcons' 2 victories have been a little bit fluke. I forget what the other primetime game was that they won against the Philadelphia Eagles, where Saquon Barkley dropped the ball on 4th down. So I think, people are looking at the Falcons like maybe they're Falcon ascending, and people kind of looking at the other bird, the Eagle, kind of descending. I don't know, man. I think that game was a little bit fluke, and had the Eagles won that game, we might be looking at this Bucs 2-2 team sitting at 1-3 looking a lot different. But what's your thoughts on tonight's matchup? Who are you going to be rolling with?
I mean, I got to know who I'm going with. I think this game is a shootout, though. I think we get a good Thursday night, Thursday night game here. There's something that's just not clicking, and I want to know how much of this has to do with Kirk obviously being out for the entire preseason and training camp and all that stuff with the Achilles. But they're just not clicking. I mean, Bijan...
That's who I was going to put it on. Their running game is not getting it done.
It just hasn't. I don't know what it is, but
Tyler Algier had more carries than Bijan Robinson last week.
Yeah, I don't know if he was banged up or what happened, but that second half, he was like on the sideline for a good portion of that matchup. But
yeah,
Kyle Pitts too. You thought, here comes Kirk Cousins. He's going to save Kyle Pitts' career.
Never spend top draft capital on a goddamn tight end.
What about Brock
Never.
Bowers?
I don't care. Listen, let me tell you why I don't care. I forgot what team Brock Bowers played for last week. I was like, who's he playing for again? He ain't got no touchdowns, right? I don't think he got no touchdowns, bro. They drafted a tight end in the first round. Was Michael Mayer a first-round pick or an early second?
No, he fell. He was like second or third round, I think.
He was not third round. 100% not third round. And if he was second, he was early second round. Bro, come on, we spending top 2-round draft capital on tight ends back-to-back. Raiders are fugazi.
That's the
what are they
Raiders
doing over there?
Man.
What are you doing over there? But Brock Bowers, he's not even really a tight end, so still wouldn't have spent. What was that pick on him, like 14 or something maybe?
Oh, it was high, I think.
Top 10?
It might have been, bro. It might have been top 10.
He didn't go before Michael Penix. He might have went right after Penix, I think. Because Penix went 8.
Yeah.
I'll look it up.
It wasn't before Penix, because they would have drafted Penix if he was still on the board.
I thought he was did he go before J.J. McCarthy, though, and Bo Nix and all that? I think that's where it might have been.
Yeah, so
13th. I was close. I
13th?
said 14th. Yeah, he was 13th.
So I think Tampa Bay is rolling. I think this is gonna be a fun game. I like Chris Godwin in this game to go over like 6 receptions. I think he's gotten over 6 catches every single game so far this year. So that's a little bet for you guys and gals. I'm gonna take Tampa Bucky Buccaneers 31, Atlanta Falcons 27.
I like the score for the Bucs. I'll take the 31 for the Bucs, but I think Atlanta will be a little bit lower than that. Let's go 31-20 in favor of the Bucs and my man Baker Mayfield. Any last words before we get the folks up out of here, man? Big shout out to all y'all. Y'all was rocking out with us today. It was a good vibe today. It flew by. This whole stream just flew by, man.
It's crazy how that happens. Big shout out to everybody in the chat. We appreciate all the love and all the support. Make sure you guys tune in on Sunday morning, 11 o'clock a.m. Eastern Standard Time for the parlay, where we answer all of your fantasy football questions. We pick every single game against the spread, the overs and the unders. Make sure you guys are checking out those shorts. Big shout out to our guy, Sebastian. We appreciate you, brother. I enjoy the Thursday night game. I think hopefully the beard is right and we get a good Thursday night matchup and the ball's flying across the TV screen in Awthentik's favorite Prime Vision, status. So yeah,
all them old heads be like, it's too much on the screen for me. I can't see what's going on. And then you got other people like, every time I watch, Amazon Prime, the broadcast is buffering. And, man, you better go holler at your internet service provider, okay? Because my Verizon over here, it's definitely cranking. That's the clearest stream I get all week, man. So I'm definitely looking forward to it. But y'all know how we end every stream over here on Awthentik and the Beard, man. Keep raising that bar. Keep living those dreams because the universe flows in Technicolor and surround sound. Rest in peace to the podcast GOAT Combat Jack. And that's a wrap, y'all. Make sure to catch us on Sunday for the parlay, not the parfait, as my homie 2 Giant Coopball said in the chat one time. And I'll also be on Bleacher Report around 7:15, recapping the New York Giants versus Seattle Seahawks. Y'all been nothing but a blessing to us here today and throughout this entire tenure of Awthentik and the Beard, the best division in football, the Giant Overreaction, the best television show not on TV, the strong side of the left side duo, strong side.
Left side.
All right, man. Y'all be good. We catch y'all on the next stream, y'all. Peace.
Spike don't care.